Hello and welcome to this video. First off, I want to introduce myself. I'm Sean Horton, a teacher. I'm a science teacher. I teach chemistry, biology, physics, environmental science. Like I've taught it all. Um, I grew up in I grew up in Wyoming and spent a lot of time on the ranch. I had horses and chickens. We lived on 5 acres. That's where I grew up. I've lived all over the country in many different cities, so I've had lots of experiences, um, different cultures. Seen a lot of things over the years. Um, so, with everything being so volatile right now, I wanted to touch on some things because I hear in the media, um, when you listen to the Democrats or you listen to the Republicans, they're all talking about, oh, we can't do this, and it's they're doing the blame game. So I wanted to go through and really talk about how green climate policies impact us, and why is everybody talking about petroleum? So I wanted to look at it from a practical standpoint and everyday American standpoint, less about politics, about like what actually impacts us. So, slide. This is the agenda. Let's first talk about what are Americans actually experiencing? The average American. So, average American doesn't make 250,000 a year. The average American makes anywhere from 40,000 to like 80,000 a year, and is struggling to make it. During the Obama time period, we saw a recession happen. During the Carter administration, we saw a recession happen. And these all have negative impacts, and they pretty much start with the cost of fuel, but never like we've seen it now, right? So places in California, they're seeing $9 a gallon. California typically has higher gas because they have more taxes, but the average, state that doesn't have higher taxes on is experiencing 50 cents a gallon, and it's only going to go up unless the people in power actually do some things to bring it down, but continue to experience those things. So that's what we're seeing at the pump. But how does that impact us? We can talk about fuel, right? Being able to get to your job. Our electricity, for example, coal and natural gas and petroleum products all are used for us to get our electricity. So that's one way we'll see increased costs in our electricity probably in about 4 months. They'll probably adjust costs, and so we'll see it down the road. And going into winter, that's going to be rough, right? Because we're going to be struggling anyway because of inflation, and we're going to be struggling gas pump to get to and from work, struggling with our energy costs to heat our house. During the summer months in like Arizona, the southern states use a lot of energy because it's hot there and you can't air conditioning. So summertime it's them. But that's just fuel costs. Okay, so fuel costs for us, how we use it as Americans, as people, just in our everyday lives. There's actually a more broad way that an increased cost of petroleum in the country impacts us. and it's going to be, so from right now, look outside and I see $5.10 a gallon where I live. That's in Washington State. So in Washington State, it actually goes anywhere from 5.10 to 5.50 depending where you're at. So typically that that's a lot. It's a lot. So what are some areas that this is going to propagate itself? Not just in our gas tanks driving to work. I wanted to show you some videos, and I'll bounce around in them, but some videos about how things are made. I'm going to show you 3 specific ones, but we're going to start with lumber production. Lumber production goes into making houses, but it also has a lot of jobs. And it's across the country, not just in Washington, although the lumber industry here is quite large, but all over the country. Anywhere there are trees, anywhere there's a forest, a national forest, where they clean out the trees, the dead trees, to make the forest healthy, you're going to see logging companies and lumber companies, sawmills, things like that. So I want to first start by playing a little bit from this video. We're going to talk about lumber.
It takes a lot of loggers to keep Americans.
That's it for a second. Then we're going to talk about salt, and then we're going to talk about soda ash. Okay, and then summarize kind of. So Mike Rowe is a guy that goes out and does these videos on how things are made. Oh, we're going to also talk about agriculture, how things are made. And as I was watching this video, I was noticing all the different places where you would use fuel and petroleum products. So petroleum products can be oil, it can be like the grease that you have to have in different parts. Parts like rubber parts that are made with petroleum in them, and also composites, so plastics. So just think about all the parts that it takes to run a truck. And when you're watching this video, see how hard they work, and then different things. So let's start. The first one we're going to see is guy who has to hike in and cut down the trees because he has to get them ready.
Supplied with their lumber, about 3,000 companies employing more than 7,000 people in all. But in coastal Alaska, one of them, truck driver Nick Whitney, has a bit of a hill to climb. Literally.
Is there anybody out there that can help me get up this hill? Can't quite make it on my own. I'm definitely losing some time here.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it and I'm going to move it forward a little bit. I'm just going to talk through. Okay, so he ends up there's a semi truck that has to come in and pull him up the hill, and you think about the diesel that goes into that. Diesel fuel right now is over $10 a gallon, and all of these big trucks use diesel fuel, okay, plus the other things that they need in it. Okay, so let me move forward. So look at all these machines here. These are all different machines. This one is a stacker. Let's see if it'll show this. Let's look at this one. There we go. Okay, so this moves the logs in here, and then there's a tugboat. Comes and he puts them all together and into a raft. So I'll play that.
So where I come in is I put all the sorts in the same raft, and I tow it out to storage, and once the barge comes, I'll tow it out to the barge.
With the barge due to arrive in just 6 hours, 1,000 tons of additional lumber to prep before then, Ram's already running behind schedule.
we have to finish our original order first, but it's going to be a long day because we got a few more that we got to push through.
Ram starts building out a retaining area for the original order of timber, where he'll create a platform of bundles, known, perhaps not surprising.
Oh, is it? Okay, so you get the idea. You know, there's a barge, they use diesel. Okay, and then once this is all like sent down, sent to the sawmill basically. See if the sawmill's in here. It's not. It goes to the sawmill, and then there are machines at the sawmill that run off of diesel or electricity, but most of the time diesel, that utilize petroleum products as well, other than just fuel. Okay, so what happens in this industry when the costs increase? So every person in there that touches a vehicle, touches something that uses fuel, there's an increased cost, which means that cost gets transferred to the sawmill. So the sawmill buys the lumber from the lumber company. Yeah, this company here, buys it from them to process it. Okay, once it's processed, that means cut into slabs of wood. Then it goes to a middleman on a truck with fuel. It goes to a middleman, and it sits in a warehouse, and then it gets bought by places like Home Depot or Ace Hardware, or I can't think of any places right now, but many, right, that buy, like Anderson Lumber. So lumber gets bought and it gets shipped on trucks from the middleman warehouse to that store. So at each place it has touched a vehicle. It has touched something that utilizes energy. Warehouse, lights in the warehouse, or the property truck that they have to use to, or it's not a truck, it's the vehicle that they have to use that lifts the logs up onto the back of the truck. All of those use diesel fuel, and other petroleum products are inside of it. So when those things cost money, then we see lumber prices go up. So that means housing costs will go up. We're already in a housing crisis where the cost of living is so expensive. This is going to make it worse, and we're seeing the same thing in the steel industry. So all the machinery that it takes to steel and mold steel, any wires that have to be made, like copper wires or anything like that, uses metal. Goes through similar process in that it has to be manufactured, right? And you have that are associated. It's not electricity, and it can't get enough energy from windmill, solar, in order to do the things that they need to do. There's a guy out here with a chainsaw, that is a hefty, hefty chainsaw cutting down trees, and he's not going to be able to use solar. Just there's not enough power. So we have to come up with alternative ways. Okay, so here is Mike Rowe goes over. He talks about reducing salt. So we use salt in everything we eat, right? Use it in to de-ice our roads. There are many products, probably every product uses salt in some way. We have batteries that use salt. Um, there, it salt is like, honestly, can't go without salt. Bodies need salt. So this particular video talks about how they go process to get salt, and there's many different ways. Sea salt, where they let the water into a they go over steps, and it takes about 4 years to steps of evaporation to get the salt. So this one is not on the coast. This is, I believe, in Salt Lake, Utah, Nevada. Let's watch a little bit of it.
In a big way. Fortunately for us, the 60-plus salt producers of our nation are working overtime to fill that demand, including a facility in southern New Mexico known as United Salt Carlsbad.
I was
Here,
wrong.
a
It's
team of 75 workers can
New
shovel,
Mexico.
process, and ship off 1,000 tons of salt per day. But with that and more now needed in the north, they're aiming to double their output to a near uncanny 2,000 tons. And all that starts with workers like this man, Raul Flores.
We're going to make our way out to the Salt Lake. We're going to do some ripping out with this powerful machine here.
Okay, let me pause that. It's going to show a stupid ad. So we'll just make it smaller. While it's doing the sorry that you have to watch stupid ad. Okay. So that particular vehicle that he was on actually breaks down. Salt is really corrosive, and so they have to take the vehicles out of production line and grease them up. Petroleum product, right? To make sure that they work. Also run off of diesel. Okay, so that is salt. Just to give you a little bit, there's much more that goes into it. They have a machine that, here, let me skip this. Let's see. They have a machine, this machine right here, that moves it, right? And this is all run on diesel as well. Okay, these are the trucks. Okay. So that's something that we use a lot. This video is about our crops. So see what he has to say about our crops.
The impact of corn on our daily lives, never mind its deliciousness right off the cob. I'm talking about its impact on medicines and textiles and energy, everything. Sit back and relax as I try and forget that endless summer in southern Illinois detasseling corn and introduce you instead to a few hardworking men and women who know exactly how America works. You can't
evolve your business with 4 times membership.
Sorry, again. Verse. There. So now I have to watch it. So agriculture.
spell cornerstone without corn. And nowhere is that more true than in these United States. Corn is our nation's largest crop, and we grow more of it by far than any other country. Why is that? Well, we have the space for it. We have pretty favorable soil and climate conditions, and as we've come to learn, it can be turned into a wide array of useful things, from food to fuel, even plastics. That's why, every year, farmers plant and harvest an area roughly the size of Montana exclusively with corn. But that's just the beginning. From there, it's up to 40 corn mills scattered across the country to turn those raw kernels into consumable product. Mills like Lifeline Foods in St. Joseph, Missouri. Here, a team of nearly 200 employees labor day in and day out to create a wide variety of meals, grits, and flours used in everything from tortilla chips to beer. And believe it or not, their busiest time of year is in the dead of winter. Specifically, in the days leading up to America's peak time for corn consumption, Super Bowl Sunday, the day when more food is eaten nationwide than any other of the year. And since the vast majority of it contains corn, guys like mill manager Kyle Ham have a whole lot to do before quitting time comes.
This week we got about 7 million pounds of corn goods that we got to ship out, so it's a pretty stressful time.
For Kyle's part, that means processing 1 million pounds of product before day's end. An all-time record amount for he and his colleagues. And it starts with ensuring that their inbound product is free from any unwanted debris.
From here you can...
Okay, I'm going to pause it there for a minute. So, you see all these pipes, these PVC pipes? All these PVC pipes are made from petroleum products. So any PVC pipes you have in your sewer, your house, made from petroleum products. The wiring that's in your house, made from the outside part of it, has petroleum products in it. Plus the energy that went to make those things, right? All of these machines that you see here are all running on big generators, sometimes diesel, sometimes electricity, so they're power grid, which, that from different sources, and the majority of the electricity in this country comes from coal, natural gas, and oil. Some of it comes from nuclear. There are grids of solar panels, like you're in different states, that go back into the grid, but for the most part, and there's some wind, but there's problems with wind as well. So my main focus here is I want you to think about all of the different places that petroleum are touching this process. And if you increase any of those prices or petroleum, it will impact the cost of all these different things. PVC pipe. So if something breaks, needs a part is maybe composite plastic or needs patient on it, or oil, all of them are petroleum products. Okay, the other thing, let's go to this next one. Oh, well, the other thing is that this corn, let's see if they show the corn. Let's just go back. So, corn has to be cut, right? The stuff has to be pulled out, the cobs have to be pulled out, then it gets cut. It gets usually probably 70% of it gets milled up into silage for cows. So cows eat it, other animals, they make it into feed. They use the whole plant. Some farmers will cut it and lay it on the ground to prevent erosion. But a majority of it is used for cows, dairy, dairy cows. And so if there's a cost increase for petroleum, there is also a cost increase for nitrogen. And the farmers use nitrogen to fertilizer. Well, companies that make fertilizer use the nitrogen gas. So nitrogen gas is part of the product that we get out of the ground with oil. There's a bunch of different things we get out of the ground. Propane. It gets separated into a bunch of different things that we actually use. We use it all. Nitrogen gas is inert, but it does need to be used to make fertilizer. So if that cost to get to that nitrogen out increases, or if we don't have access to it because they're not drilling to get it, that's where we're going with it, then the cost of growing is going to increase. Okay, so you will see it not just with the corn products, that's the first layer. You'll see it with all of your meats because that's how cows eat, all of your dairy. So say you don't drink dairy, you don't eat, you might drink soy products. Soy products will be affected by it as well. Everything grown in the United States that utilizes production that is done with gas vehicles, production that uses fertilizer, or if it's organic and they are feeding the animals that they have alfalfa. So alfalfa, hay, you have to have trucks that use diesel and tractors that use diesel. So it encompasses every this country. So we have these people out there that are in government or making decisions that are impacting the cost at the pump. And there's a lot of different reasons. It's not just one thing. But if we don't say something to these people and stand up for our rights and say, look, this is not a plan. We're not ready to transition to green. We're not. Are all those parts that are made for all of the different vehicles and the different machines, are all those parts made with something that's not made with petroleum products? Do we have good products that are cheap that people can buy to change out their chainsaws and their vehicles? You know, all these businesses, are there good alternatives? Is it subsidized? Like, how are these people going to pay for it? These companies that smaller mom and pop shops that are barely making it as it is, lumber companies that there's not a huge overhead in, especially for the people that are out there on the side of the mountain down the lumber trees. Steel, same thing. There's not a lot of wiggle room, and policies that are out there with the green agenda, it's putting so much pressure on all these different areas. I just want you to go out and research. Don't listen to me. I mainly just want you to question things. I may be wrong about something. I don't think I am about this. This is pretty high level. Or it's not getting down into the economic stuff, right? It's just looking at where fuel touches, where petroleum products touch in our everyday stuff. Here's one more. Trona, which is soda ash, it is a mineral. In the United States, we have one of the largest mineral deposits, and soda ash is in about 90% of our products, our clothes, things like that. It's used to process. So, like baking soda, that's made from soda ash. It's just an example, one example of a product, but you can find soda Trona in a bunch of different products. It's called Trona. That's it's official. Um, anyway, so cost to mine that. All of that stuff is run on diesel, and it's in every single product. So if it is going to get more expensive to mine, then it's all of our products are going to increase. So when you think of our natural resources that we use here in the United States, that we don't necessarily outsource or that we're selling to other countries, it's going to get really expensive, really expensive. So that is that. I just want you guys to think about that. Again, this video is just. I'm not here to argue policy. You can have your own opinion about policy, what needs to happen, but not being honest about impact that this is having and that it will have. So we've had increased gas prices for 6 months, well, longer than 6 months, ever since 2021, January 2021, gas prices have been increasing. So downstream, you will see huge inflation products, and it will continue. May we had 8.3% inflation, 8.3%. Never have happened before. Worse than even during the Great Depression, right before the Great Depression. So, as Americans, we have a responsibility to understand the environment, understand what all this means. And we can start small. But we do not have the infrastructure right now to fix all this. Can't just say no more fuel and it be fixed. It's just an impossibility. So that is the state of affairs right now in this country. And the American people are paying the price. Literally paying the price. Not the wealthy people. They have to pay too, but they're not hurting. They're not the ones at the gas pump trying to put gas in their truck. They're not the ones who go to the grocery store and see a small thing hamburger, $9, $12 a pound. That is like to feed their family. They're not the ones who has a formula shortage. Now that was for another reason, but cost of formula is going to go up. So all of these problems need to be addressed, right? On both sides of it. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican. It is an American issue. So I just encourage you to go out and look at what people are actually doing to solve problems that the average American is experiencing. And then determine if that person to vote on your behalf. But we have to educate ourselves and be aware because they are shutting us down. So anybody that questions what they be administration, whoever's in office in power, they will try to shut us down. So there's that piece. That's the green agenda. Shutting the oil spigot down is what, for environmental reasons. And I'm not going to argue that. I just wanted to say what's actually occurring to us, what we feel at the grocery store, the average American. There is another thing that is pretty scary that's coming down. I didn't believe it. I thought that it was just a bunch of nonsense. But right now, our big companies are being impacted by what's called the ESG score. And there's a portion of this score that is based on like who your company donate to someone who supports specific policies, then that is not the agenda for charge the bankers, then get dinged. Your business will get dinged. So, for example, if you own a large farm and just wanted to buy some land to increase your production, right? So it's going to give jobs in the community, turnout or whatever you're producing out, but you can't get a loan because the bank's telling you because you voted a certain way, donated to a certain politician, even the Second Amendment, something like that, that your score is lower. So you can't get a loan or whatever it is you need to run your. So that is a problem. And you're seeing businesses that are probably going to go out of business because they can't do that. And it's not too far away from us as average citizens, not business owners, but average citizens that work for companies. That score, that credit score, social credit score, will be coming down the pike as we stop it as voting citizens. It will. Banks are already creating apps. There's a lot of talk. They're already doing it. And if you don't live by their rules, and they can change them anytime they want, anytime they see a way to make money, change it and trying to control a narrative or whatever, they'll use it politically. So that's coming down the pike. That's something to be aware of. I thought it was a bunch of malarkey until I actually heard it out of the mouths of are in charge of setting the agenda for the financial sector in this country. Charles Schwab is one of them. And is it Charles Schwab? Schwab. I never thought that I have an issue with that, like this country. So just educate yourself. Don't assume. Even if you are a Democrat and these ideals that your party is set up, then just make sure that you educate yourself and that you're not just looking at partisan sites of information. Because honestly, most of the stuff in the news right now is all based and not fact based. So shows like this, where Mike Rowe goes out in the communities and he sees exactly what these people do for their jobs. This is fact based research, and it's undeniable. So you could go out and read exactly what he does and see the same information. This is the kind of research that I'm talking about. Go to C-SPAN, watch what they're talking about in Congress, learn how things are funded. For example, our public school system is funded by property tax. Companies that own agriculture in your state sit on boards that impact laws that are passed at the local, county, and state level. We have county commissioners. Those county commissioners, for example, let's pretend that we have a county in our state that produces a bunch of dairy, and that happens to be 40% of our GDP, gross domestic product. So 40% of the product that's sold from our state. Okay. And it's owned by a Chinese company that is controlled by the Chinese government. There is a possibility that they could control or at least influence politics, county politics, and the state politics because of their influence over the finances and the tax revenue that are generated in the state. So that's a hypothetical. Actually, I actually went out and did some research, and it does happen. Again, you don't have to do the research yourself. Don't believe what other people write. You look at the numbers and crunch the numbers yourself. Get the data yourself, because bias will go to it. So all these things are happening. Do your work as an American citizen. It's our responsibility. I hope the things that I mentioned in here are and giving you something to think about in the process. And it's all about talking with each other and making America better, right? We want a better place for our children, a better place for us to live. So fighting between the average American doesn't get us there. We have to come up with solutions. And if our politicians and our media are not allowing that discourse to happen, we have to go out and do it ourselves. So, in a positive way, non-angry way that is productive and lawful, right? And can't be breaking the law. And respectful, to respect our fellow citizens. Can't be out there protesting and breaking down windows and burning things down. That doesn't work. To be responsible citizens, and which I'm sure 99.9% of you guys are. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, and I hope this was helpful. I wish all of you a happy, peaceful, and productive life.